Hi everyone, welcome back to the Nature Talks Podcast. Today we are with Vallari Sheel. She's a tree expert, and welcome to the show, Vallari. How are
Thanks,
you?
Serene.
Today we are at Nehru Park. Actually, we're doing the podcast outdoors, and right now we're sitting under a neem tree. So it's a good weather today. It's not going to rain today, I think, and it's a normal May weather. Otherwise, it's been raining through May. We had fog also a few days back. So yeah, uh, tell us something about your work on the trees of Delhi that you've been doing.
So, I'm an urban ecologist, and currently I am focusing on urban trees in Delhi. So, I'm basically looking at their ecological interactions with birds and trying to identify which trees are important food resources for urban vertebrates in the city. So, that includes birds and squirrels and monkeys. And I'm also looking at how different groups of citizens perceive trees. What are the benefits of trees that people think they provide in urban areas such as Delhi, and also trying to understand some of the decision making that goes behind planting or felling trees in the city.
Yeah, so I think we met 7, 8 years back when we started doing tree climbing workshops, and yeah, even now we keep meeting in the different nature walks that keep going on. You have your own walks also going on. I have
Yes.
my other walks, and yeah, you have a team that's working with you on the survey of the trees, right?
Yes, the tree climbing workshop was the first and only one that I did with you. But I've been working on trees since 2015. So I started with doing a survey of my neighborhood trees and identifying all the street trees that were there. And then, along with the authorities, we got them numbered to provide them some protection. And then I moved on to do a PhD in which I'm looking at these interactions. So I do have a team of interns who help me with conducting these monitoring sessions. So we do systematic monitoring to identify which birds are feeding on which trees, and we have about 25 focal tree species that we are monitoring in Delhi. And we are also doing this project in Bangalore. So even in Bangalore, we are monitoring about 20-25 different tree species. And across the two cities, we've seen, a large number of birds feeding on trees, both on street side trees and trees inside small parks or large parks. And while I don't think we need science to tell us that trees are important, and I don't think we need any research to tell us that, but this has only cemented that aspect of trees, how important they are, not only for wildlife in the city, not only for sustaining habitats for birds and animals, but also for people, because so many people that I've talked to have mentioned how important trees are for their mental health, how they enjoy coming to parks, because not only for the purpose of exercise, because it helps them to relieve stress and that they feel good. And I just think we need to have more green spaces in the cities. uh, and I'm always a proponent for more green spaces instead of malls, because whichever park you go to, no matter when you go to that park, it is always full of people, which means that citizens are using parks, which means parks are so important, and I just feel we need to have more of them around.
Yeah, even right now there was no parking outside because everybody is here spending time in the park. They just want to be around nature. Nobody is in a rush to go to any mall to hang out over there right now. And yeah, it feels good. It feels better to be outside. So, yeah, what is the situation with the trees in Delhi right now? What's happening? I have my opinions and my experience, but what is your side?
um so over the last 5 to 7 years, I feel we've lost a very large number of trees in the city, and these are big, mature, old trees. And due to certain policies around urban trees, we have been, I mean, agencies have been able to fell trees for infrastructure and other projects, and in lieu of them, plant saplings in different areas which are not even near the areas where the trees have been felled. So personally, I feel these policies are lacking in protection of trees, so they're not really providing protection to trees, and so we definitely need to change that. But also I think that because of this large scale tree felling for infrastructure and other projects, we are basically changing the ecology of the city, right? So we are losing a lot of the big trees, and big trees not only provide habitat for wildlife, but they're really important because big trees have large canopies, they have a larger leaf surface area, which produces more oxygen, which absorbs more pollutants. These trees sequester more carbon compared to smaller ones. And also these trees, currently if we see Delhi, these trees are spread across the city, but when we fell them and then we do some plantation on the periphery of the city, it's not going to benefit the city centers. So, we are changing ecology in a very fundamental manner, and we need to stop doing that.
Yeah, so like we are sitting under this tree right now. If you remove this tree and plant something in the other state, we're not going to get the shade sitting over here, right? So it's simple logic which some people are not able to understand, I guess. And yeah, that's why we're going through all this mess.
Also, I just want to say not all trees are similar, right? A neem tree is very different from a champa tree. And a fig tree, a large peepal or bargad is very different from a palm. So you cannot cut down these large neems and ficuses and even other large trees and then plant palms and champas and say that is equivalent to it, because that is not. These are very different trees. Not only are they different in their forms and growth patterns and canopies, but we, in my research, I have found that large trees like ficuses provide more habitat and more food source to wildlife, while palms and champas don't do that. So we are gradually destroying that habitat also.
Yeah, even the flowers on the champa don't have any nectar for the bees. So
yeah, because champa is pollinated by thrips, so it's a very different kind of tree. It has its own beauty, but we cannot plant it en masse to replace other trees.
And how has social media and stuff, I mean many things, there are many variables, but how has the people's mindsets changed about trees over the last 5 or 10 years?
I cannot comment on that because I am not a social media person, but I feel one aspect where social media has been very useful is in creating awareness about trees in cities, about urban trees, urban wildlife and urban ecology. I also feel it creates it is like an outlet where people can share their own experiences with nature. So, compared to having just newspapers earlier in which just a few people could write and only experts could share, we can see a lot of different people, sharing their experiences and sharing photos around nature, not only from cities, from anywhere where they travel. So I think social media can provide that sort of community and connection and a learning space as well.
And do you have a favorite tree?
I have lots of favorite trees.
Okay, top 5 or top 3.
Okay, top 3. One of my favorites is the amalthas, just because there's a huge amalthas tree in front of my house, and I probably couldn't imagine life without it. I see it through its seasons, and I've been seeing it for so many years. And when it flowers, it looks absolutely amazing. It's also a huge tree, so there are a lot of birds around my house because of the presence of this tree. I also really, really like the semal. It's an amazing tree, and it is the first tree that flowers in spring in Delhi. So it is like it heralds spring for me. And if you see any semal tree when it's flowering, it's like a great party for all animals and birds, because all kinds of birds come and feed on the Semul. The flowers have a lot of nectar, sweet nectar, and I've seen all kinds of birds feeding on it. And Semul also provides nesting cavities for birds like hornbills and Alexandrian parakeets. So it's important for a variety of reasons. But more than that, it's such a beautiful tree, and fortunately we have so many of those in Delhi lining the streets of the city.
The whole city turns red.
Yes, so I always say that, spring is red in Delhi. And that's because of the Semul. And then of course the third tree that I really like is the Palash. It's a native tree of this area. Unfortunately we don't have Palash planted on street side, so it's not a species that was preferred by horticulture departments for plantation. But we have a lot of Palash in many parks of Delhi. And of course Palash is related to Holi, but in Delhi I've seen it flowering after Holi. But it's a beautiful tree with these flame-like flowers, which is why it's also called flame of the forest. And again, you will tend to see a lot of birds on the Palash, because they also feed on the nectar of the Palash. And Palash also has does provide a lot of nesting cavities for birds like menas and even owlets. So again, a very beautiful tree, and also provides a lot of habitat for urban wildlife.
And besides trees, do you have any, is trees your favorite thing about nature, or something else your favorite thing about nature?
I think, of course, it's not just trees. I focus on trees, but nature is so interconnected. So I really want to talk about ecosystems. So it's the interconnections between the trees, the shrubs, the herbs, the birds and butterflies. But I think the three taxa that most people can experience easily in a city are trees and plants, and birds and butterflies. And these are three taxa that you can have in your house, around your house, in your neighborhoods, and of course in larger parks. But you can really experience them and see them every day. And they really change life. I mean, during COVID, during all the lockdowns, we've heard so many people share their experiences with nature, people who had access to nature in the form of even a balcony garden or a terrace garden or a garden. And for me, it was a life-changing experience in some ways, because I spent so much time with the plants in my house, and I was able to observe so many birds and butterflies that I probably hadn't earlier. So I also learned so much. And of course, because there was no noise and air pollution was less, I think animals like butterflies and birds were more active, so we could see more of them. So I like these three taxa a lot in urban areas.
And so, like, looking at Delhi, since we are in the world's most polluted capitals, and there's around 5 trees getting cut every hour, maybe more now because of the way things are progressing. So what do you see the future of Delhi to be like, or the country? Actually, Delhi is the capital, so whatever happens here echoes throughout the country. So what do you think is the future of Delhi? Where do you see it after 5 years or 10 years or 50 years? Or will there be a Delhi after 50 years?
Like you said, I think Delhi is the capital. Honestly, I feel very sad and dejected many times, because the destruction that we see around us is not good. And in fact, I got into urban ecology because of the destruction we saw around us. So I saw trees being felled in my neighborhood. I saw trees being felled on some big roads near my house where I traveled every day. And the urge to kind of provide some kind of protection to them is what led me to pursue urban ecology in the first place. I hope that there are enough voices and enough citizens to protect our urban green spaces actually, because I don't think we would be able to survive in the city without it, and I don't think the city would survive without it either. So I'm hopeful that things will change for the better, but like I say, I also feel very dejected at times.
Yeah, we sometimes we keep fighting for one branch at a time or one tree at a time, and then they go and cut down thousands of trees in one go. So it feels like we're fighting a losing battle also.
Yeah, it's like an uphill. Yeah, it's
But-
like fighting a losing battle
But
at
there
times.
are some wins also along the way.
There are wins, and it's always, the other thing is, it's always nice to be part of a community where people can encourage each other and support each other, so that is also very important. But I do think we need a lot more awareness for citizens, and we also need to be able to influence our decision makers, because what I am seeing these days is that it is not the common citizen who's involved in decision making, and a lot of times I also feel that the voices of everyday citizens are not being heard. So therefore it's really important that decision makers take the right decision for the welfare of the people, for the welfare of the city. And it's not just about infrastructure, and it's not just about creating jobs, because none of that will survive if you don't have a city with water, if you don't have a city with clean air. All of that will be pretty useless. So I do hope that we see better decision making going forward.
There was some article recently that the cities are becoming unlivable with the way things are going. So anyway, do you have any last messages, words for the viewers, for the listeners?
I feel we all need to really appreciate our urban green spaces, and nature is all around us. Sometimes we do need to make an effort to nurture it and experience it, but once we start doing that, it's very rewarding. So even if you have a tiny balcony and you can grow 4 plants, and just seeing the plants grow, the joy it brings is unparalleled. So I would encourage everyone to nurture some form of plant life, or provide water pots for birds in the summers. Do something to stay in connection with nature.
Yeah, that's some good words of advice. Even like we see right now, we are surrounded by squirrels and birds. They're feeling comfortable around us because we're not disturbing them. They have their food and water around. So
yeah, there was also a big rat which came and then ran away.
yeah, we all have to coexist, live together on this planet, and yeah, that's it. So thank you all for listening, for watching, and thank you for coming on the Nature Talks podcast today. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.